Attention!
Ladies and gentlemen, it's with great sadness that I come to announce this video. Is Pokemon famous? Or is it famous how famous it is? The role that you play in Pokemon is probably the most important aspect. A kid exploring the world with his loyal team of pets really had a grasp on world building, even with low resources. RPG wise, I think it really fits the handheld and the limited move pools, simple stats. There's nothing much to the mechanic of creature collecting in it. At the same time, we already had some other contenders like Shin Megami Tensei and Wizardry. The key here is, what were you collecting? To name it pets doesn't really make the justice. I think wild animals really sets the plane for Ken Sugimori's painting style. But so what? It's not like we didn't create zoos and pet adoption centers in animal trafficking. Do you have this in purple? Why? The anime was the X factor that actually made the games much more special. It gave meaning to playing the games. The sentimental interaction of Ash and his Pokemon, the wildlife environment, it really made it came true. Not only for me, but also a lot of other people in the world. So why the melancholic start of the video? Well, this. Oh man, Game Freak really dropped the ball with this one. I know. I'm going to create my own.
Stop right there, criminal scum. Give it up, you psycho.
Put the pen down. Stop. If he gets close to that vertical monitor, just shoot him. Alright, boss. The genre of creature collecting, from underrepresented at the time, would turn into the desired but feared. It would spawn a doppelganger here and there, even inspiring franchises that were already set. But it's really hard to fight this behemoth of a franchise. I would say that there were fair shots that have been given at this franchise's empire. They were good attempts, even if for the spectrum outside gaming world, people would not even recognize some of these. But I would say that in the future, and even back in the day, it would raise a question. Why Pokemon? And it's not sometimes Pokemon, it's always Pokemon. Indie devs and small studios alike have made Pokemon into the genre, instead of being part of the genre. Imagine you're playing Jack 3, and you know at the end of the level, instead of going back to the overworld, since it is a platformer, there's a Mario flag and pole at the end. Look out for the pipes to get the bonus stage, and then you buy Earthworm Jin. Pipe and flag! Hey, you in Mario Town, everybody's getting piped. You would get to a point of, stop acting like this is industry standard. You know, I had to sit down and listen to my friend explain maybe that the color code of League of Legends is the industry standard. I don't blame him of thinking that, since we are around the 5th generation of copied Warcraft. Woo! Yeah, baby! And whoever celebrated that, end him. Because in itself, copied 40k. Guess what? Blanca is a Necron, Bonesy Buddy is a Void Demon. Pokemon is the baseline of the genre as much as Mario is baseline for Giana Sisters. First of all the teaming. You know, you look forward to being a trainer in Pokemon. You are like walking around in an imaginary safari through this region, heavily based on its culture. Of course, the anime gave you the narrative of what it is to be a Pokemon trainer. No amount of menuing or text boxes could sell you on the wonders of exploring the world and looking for the next weird creature. With that said, it doesn't translate well when you don't have any kind of narrative at all. And just like every other case in this video, devs are like, no you silly, you were supposed to get the Pokemon context and swap it out with my totally original Pokemon. Not only you sell on the audience to what their place as a player is, but also confine the experience of the series. Like Monster Rancher is all about training the monsters for the season. Like Sumo, originally with little to no exploration. Meanwhile, to be a rancher is to plan schedules and feed them and praise or scold them, while also knowing there is a limited time to their career. With the common argument being, of course I'm copying the top, as it's the most optimized. That's what I'm saying, we need a full team of point guards, man. It seems that the only that could replicate the lightning in the bottle that was Pokemon was early Takahashi's Yu-Gi-Oh! Card games were something synergy, archetypes, but what Takahashi saw was something that we still have to fight against Magic the Gathering fans till this day. The setting that Takahashi wrote, the card gaming part of Yu-Gi-Oh!, the rise of the hyper-futuristic technological world, where holograms could come to reality and fight in these giant arenas. Takahashi's world and definition of what is to be a duelist were making kids hallucinate about card holograms in real life, about tournaments on a world that wasn't as far-fetched as you think. And comes to my next point. The card itself could only do as much. Does it really matter if the thing you are collecting is not that interesting in the first place? You see, humans are less and less connecting with the outside world. As the forest transformed into concrete jungles, fruit trees became death traps to the senior citizens, and as skinwalkers became fentanyl hybrids, the phrase, touch some grass, the phrase may have a larger meaning than you think. Maybe the humanity craves the long-lost connection with the nature. Once animal spirits were connected to our personalities and roles, as much as my O-negative blood type. More importantly, do you kids even know some of these?
What's that thing? Is that a dog? Cheeto. Is that a chicken? What the fuck is this? I thought it was like a llama.
Pokemon, the series where every animal is a dog. So it raises the question, why would you even fight on the same semantic group? Humans been collecting shit for years, collecting rocks, with humans symbolizing as objective to be overcome, or first nature of being unmovable. It only gets cool when you understand the difference of each one of them. Meanwhile, collecting bird feathers, not only as a fashion statement, but also as a physical representation of flying and the freedom to lead and go whatever you please. It gets way deeper when you see that some tribes could not just leave and go to LA and live a second life as a bartender. When you realize we are low-key addicted to collecting whatever, being close for my Animal Crossing characters, to weapons in Dark Souls or guns in Warframe, exposing that human desire, we can just assume that these creatures could just be, I don't know, chime dolls from different cultures, washing machines, clown egg registers, or maybe just like Ekimemo Station Memories, a game about Japanese train stations being represented as anime girls, that you need to visit the real life station and create your own team, quoting the page, collect as many stations as possible. Think about Radiata stories with bazillion characters. People did all the side quests to unlock them, but apparently Square Enix didn't know people would try to get every character in Octopath Traveler. You living in which world again? In terms of choosing the theming of your monsters, I would go for something with high density and highly collectible. The most pinpoint creature 101 being Yokai Watch. Simply, Japanese evil spirits have such a high variety and density, with memorable stories that interpreting these in a cartoonic way is just a blast to see. In Shin Megami Tensei, getting the also highly density of gods and entities. And you know the topic is good when you can read the lore and come up with different interpretations every time. Yu-Gi-Oh! Started by representing RPG tropes with mages, dragons, and warriors, and it's crazy to think that it took a while for somebody to create something like Monster Rancher Kaiju. Kaijus have a high variety and density, and Kaijus have their own aesthetic, powers, but somehow nobody decided to do a rip-off of some of these, you know. Pokemon Larvitar, Pokemon Tyranitar, yes, okay. I want to propose a lyrical analysis to the start of this argument. Kiss 1,000 girls one time or kiss a girl 1,000 times. Create the Vietnamese trap or fair play. Games like Digimon and Pokemon are known by the sheer volume of what they are packing. Digimon, every evolution line comes with at least 5 and maxing out at what? 7, 8. So when I see people trying to match up with these numbers, did you ever consider don't? Just don't fair play. Well, you see, you're new to the monster taming business. Need to build the trust of your clientele. Pull them by the heartstrings little by little. Wouldn't it be wiser to invest all that workload into actually trying to sell your creatures? Example, Monkey Puncher. So the premise of the game is basically, if the people from The Sims Castaway created a whole civilization where instead of underground monkey fighting is treated as a minor gang scuffle. Since they are part of our society, the price of the banana is 40 gold. When we talk about characterizing and giving personality to a creature, the monkey's got you covered. The range of emotions of them speaks for itself. Happy, sad, pissed off, shy. The reactionary nature of them is rewarding in itself. And the game also invests time to create the real connection with you. The game starts imposing that to gain their trust, you gotta give them food and analyze their movement, endure bites, and praise them. This is 2000, you guys. And if it wasn't enough, there's an active training with you and your monkey where they replicate your character's movement. And the battle system where it's automatic, but you are also commanding the monkey's strategy to kiss a girl 1,000 times. The decision to lay on personality to this creature. Oh yeah, well, where is Monkey Puncher right now? The multimedia empire, millions of dollars. Monkey Puncher evil scene. Well, I don't know. It really feels miserable to play a game that after I'm done, I cannot remember the name of not a single pseudo Pokemon. Even the legendaries that are on the art boxes being self-irrelevant because there is nothing to do with it. I'm sorry, I don't know what was I on. And even if I remember, it would come out as the sole feature of the creature. Oh, Moondog. Oh, the Fire Tiger. It could have been more memorable and more impactful if you attached the personality into the poor thing. Of course, we talk about Pokemon lacking animation. In the spirit, they don't need to portray their characters in game. Because guess what? Everyone's Lucario is highly faithful because we simply close the bridge with the anime. And you can see sometimes with Chikorita as well. The rhetoric around Pokemon is just like my wife preparing dinner. You know, if you hold it like that, it won't get the blood, whatever. You will really ignore any other contribution to the genre that is not from this company, that you actively complain about, but yet chokes everybody from ever changing the state of the genre. Monster Rancher 4 gave you an empty farm and a monster. Different from the other games where you had these courses that you brought your monster to train. At the start of the game, you are making your monster meditate or shadowboxing. Something like this, the natural aspect to this training, really approaches the player and the monster. It's like starting from the bottom, make it out of the farm type shit. In the same place where you train and eat and sleep slowly transforms on this gym full of equipment. And guess what? All these animations translate to the creature's personality. Garu being this energetic young Monferno, always doing too much, like Jake Paul's early videos. Getting an animation of failure and exhaustion. And this is a crazy incentive to continue playing. Different training gear, just so you can see different animations on your monster. Of course, your team also gets bigger, and it feels like you are drafting an NBA team. The essence here is the disregard to anything that creates any kind of connection with the player. These games cannot create small isolated narratives and environments to build a character like this. But the social media is quick to point out that Charmander protecting its flame from the rain as one of the most touching moments. a scene that was made 30 years ago. And this moment is really something else. To the viewer, it creates a protective aura around Charmander, and it antagonizes Damien. Imagine if your team could have more Charmanders. Treating this creature not as a mass-produced demon, and more of a well-crafted RPG character. This is a cry for help, okay? Just make somebody kick the Pokemon and make us hate him. But none of these would bother anybody if... Does it need to be an RPG? Worse than that, does it need to be top-down RPG? That's the part about the word creature collecting. It doesn't imply none of these. The same problem happens to Smash, where people just forgot to create any other genre of gameplay because it's not a crossover series, it's a platform fighter that happens to be a crossover. So just like my father is a crackhead but just also happens to be my father. And it's so disingenuous because it's an RPG. There could be an argument for competitiveness, which I would claim Pokemon as the only one. But none of them propose anything different than the core experience. What did you expect? 4 moves, weakness chart based on elements. The core formula is still the same. When I say shit like this, people feel like I've insulted their whole family. But how your product is so much of a copy, but you can't give me an alternative or even something that derives from the experience. Even the cities get the shtick. Because the cities of Pokemon, by design, they have something iconic of each city. And this of course changes through the years. Pokemon could be a good contender on urbanism in later games. That's where it gets comically weird. Some of these games and cities are centered around being the healing tank for the game story. In specific, every street or avenue goes straight to the Pokemon Center, which means some of these were not supposed to be livable. If you really want the city to be a heal tank, just put a gate that heals you automatically when you pass. You don't need the Pokemon Center with nothing basically, or even clones of each one. It's like, that's useless. Don't even put cities, just since we are living in this gaming world that doesn't need to have sense to it. Just give us the most convenient. How can people be this much dead set on cloning Pokemon and also don't appreciate the complexity of the product itself? You are losing to a GBC game, get it together. I wish I could sit down and yap more about the meaningless hill of trying to make an RPG competitive or achieve more than Pokemon. It's not something that adding a new type or adding a new kind of move or passive, which is mildly where a lot of these games align. And the problem with this genre is a quick response to having a team or multiple creatures in use and not just as a second thought. My recommendation would be a game like Azito. Would be a nice match to a Heart of Creatures. Azito is about creating secret bases and recruiting superheroes, monsters, and giant robots to protect your base from supervillains. If you never played Unholy Height, I recommend. It looks kinda similar. A game where you rent rooms to monsters and they defend you in your little building. You can see how this translates well, just as much as our next game, Pikmin with monster collecting. I can see being in the same spirit of Shin Megami Tensei Devil Summoner 2. The setting is a detective that summons creatures, and each one of them can do something different, like speaking demon tongue or read minds. And in the same way, I think it would kind of work on a Pikmin setting. And wow, and now you are invited to my watch party of people that didn't make any change on the genre. And don't worry, I also have mine. The didn't make any change on YouTube hallway. Oh, I remember this, it's my first video. First, I'd like to start with Digimon. Each game changes genre and still applying tons of Digimons to collect. But I separated 2 for us to look at. In terms of gameplay, this is still an RPG. But the difference is, you are as hopeless as the poor staff of Game Awards when the indie devs wants 10 more seconds. Mashing the button to wrap it up, and different from what some people would believe, that actually plays into the characterization of the creature at its own mind, kinda. This game came before the end, so they have to give you any kind of indication of personality to this monster. The series came from Tamagotchi, virtual pets, so adding hunger, drowsy, sick, and diabolical diarrhea on the top of the hub to actively train your Digimon, and all that scales to feel like the Digimon is alive instead of just a machine. And the other, of course, is base building management Digimon Champions DS. You have training tiles so you can build your own base. You gotta use your stylus to grab and toss them around, each room changing their status. In this video, I select some of these because they have either a minimalistic art style or a low poly models, meaning at least equal to a Pokemon game. It's easy to point out games like Palworld as an optimization, but the sheer volume of work and detail they have to get just to a game look like buggy, it's unreal for a small dev studio. And just like the other games, they get sick and diabolical, but unlike the last one, this one, you can put up to 3 monsters to fight. And you can have, I don't know, as close as to 7 Digimons in your base. At the start, you are catering to your creature, and at the end, you are like changing a lot of monsters side to side, remembering schedules. It's so intense, just so later you can sit down and relax and watch them battle and lose the battle for you. And it sounds miserable to not have combat in a game about collecting, but the combat baits us to create a miserable experience overall, like Dinosaur King or Invisi-Animals. Let's say that they kinda had some of the things I said in this video, but the combat goes straight up rock, paper, and scissors. Literally. I could not recommend any of these to play or replay. Games like Monster Racer DS, it's not the most valuable gameplay feature, racing in 2D like speedrunners. At least it leaves more of an impression than a game that copies Pokemon, and their move pools at the end of the game has such variety that makes Pokemon RBY competitive. Looks like the holy grail of strategy. For a gameplay focused series, I would obviously name Monster Rancher. The system is pretty cool, 3 different distances determining which move you use. Pretty cool. Funny enough, I expected to have more tactical RPGs. Ironically, I gotta bring it back to Majin Tensei 94, something that is more focused on the position of your monsters. It seems like an obvious choice, but I guess nobody but Pokemon technically did it. Metabots AX on the GBA, which you can build your robot mixing parts and you can mix and match however you want it, and you are brought to this weird platform fighter where you can fight other robots. I'm gonna be honest, just talking about makes me wanna play more. And just to be sure, robots were a common selection for creature collect that were competing with Pokemon back in the day. And of course, I mean, if you want something that could be interesting, I don't know, make a 3v3 battle network, which people are overdoing it these days, but okay. And you can just change creatures on the fly. This one is super important. Zatubel Mamoto's Fury on the PS2. This game kind of proves that you can do a Pokemon 3D third person kind of a fighting game. It's not really a fighting game. It's super fun, and you can actually see how this movement and these spells would actually work translating into Pokemons and trainers and, you know, dodging and shit. And this video is not me trying to shatter some developers' dreams. This is a cry for help. The developers that are normally praised for giving a fresh take on genres that were forgotten by the mainstream. And there is this spirit of, I'm trying to fix Pokemon, so I'ma bring up the animation, the map bullshit, the gimmick. I'm gonna create this alternative esoteric berry collecting stuff. But here's the thing. Of course, every average Pokemon fan will complain about the problems in Pokemon, but you're not convincing anybody to play your game by fixing someone else's problems. I'm gonna be her best friend so she can dump her toxic boyfriend looking ass. Of course they don't need to work on their game. They already invested in world building, creature characterization, an entire anime plushie collections, furry fanbase. The game you're trying to play, they have been playing for years. Hey guys, today I'm fighting this freak of nature that only trained his entire life on beating people till they are unconscious. Oh, that's you. That's you. And I'm still open for new experience, but somehow the devs that get praised for creating something new are making a forgettable experience for tying his ship too close to Pokemon, which makes me believe people just didn't make their homework and decided, oh my god,